Hey everyone, Norm from Tested here, and I am on location at the Prop Store facilities where they have their upcoming Entertainment Memorabilia Annual Auction. This is the one that we get to preview every year at San Diego Comic-Con. What's happening again virtually this year, I've been invited to come down and get a close look at some of these costumes and props. The rare chance to see these up close before they go into collectors' hands. We're going to be chatting with Brandon about the history and the provenance of these props. It's going to be very exciting. Let's go take a look. So I'm thrilled now to be joined by Brandon, of course, of Prop Store. You guys have brought out a selection, a few of the almost 1,000 items you guys have ready for this upcoming auction. And it looks like on this table here are all from Tippett Studio, from Phil Tippett, kind of this nice chapter in his stop motion and creature design. These are new items, new pieces?
They are, yeah, no, that's right. We did an auction with Phil a couple of years ago where he sold some things. At that time, there was still a batch of material that he wanted to hold on to. Some of those pieces that he held on to a few years ago have now come out for this auction, the 2020 Entertainment Memorabilia Live Auction. So these pieces are actually some that were very special to Phil. Do you want to just talk through them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anyone who's had the privilege of visiting Tippett Studio may recognize some of these kind of like hallowed pieces. Again, a perfect slice in the era. Like some of these very clearly just the armatures of iconic creatures. This from Star Wars.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Phil obviously is very much known for being an animator and a stop motion animator. And so, like you say, I mean, you've been to Tippett Studios. He had these pieces on display there for many years. I'm sure to inspire young animators and other visual effects artists. And the one that you're looking at up there, that is actually an armature that Phil created himself as a personal project in, I guess, the early or mid 70s. George Lucas then saw it when they were doing Star Wars and said, boy, wouldn't this be great for the chess sequence? And that's sort of the genesis of what those characters were. And then Phil and John Berg went and designed a number of other characters to match the style of that one. And I think you said you knew the name to that guy.
Yeah, it has an official Star Wars, the Jarek name, alien name, right? But I think internally they call this Mr. Big.
Mr. Big. Well, that one we can remember.
And this one, I know they got it back from Lucas to use as a reference to recreate the armature for Force Awakens. So it has this whole history, this whole life beyond the first film.
Right. And I know part of the reason Phil had this armature is that after they finished Star Wars, he and John Berg actually gifted to George personally some of the puppets, including this one, which was Phil's personal character. But of course, before giving them to George, they removed the armature, as animators typically do, because they could use the armature again on another project. You know, once the puppet, the skin and such became a display piece, it really didn't need an armature anymore. So like when I look at that, it reminds me of something like the King Kong armature that Bob Burns owns.
And that's, you have exposed like proportions of the limbs, right? This is all with Phil as a creature designer. And also the way, you know, these are all machined in together, different armature techniques, different joint techniques that you see kind of inherited in other pieces, like from Starship Troopers that he also worked on.
Yes, yeah. So this piece here, Phil told me, is a model that he would use to both test and train animators on Starship Troopers. So, you know, the animation on that film was not going to be stop motion, it was going to be digital. But he said by reviewing an animator's work with a stop motion armature like this, you could really learn about whether they understood movement and how these bugs should move and things like that. So, you know, this is a fully practical stop motion model. It has all the ball and socket joints. Everything's very precise, very tightly machined and fit together. And, you know, an animator can come in and just play with this and really bring it to life. Obviously, I'm not an animator, so I'm not doing a good job of it right now. But if it was someone who knew what they were doing, you know, you can manipulate the legs and you can make the character really breathe.
And it has a very recognizable silhouette of those bugs from Starship Troopers. So often the armatures created the silhouettes, much like in Kane here.
Yeah.
You know, this was the puppet, one of the puppets used in some of the animation sequences, but it's blending all the aesthetics of the character with the armature underneath.
That's right. I mean, that I think is what's so clever about Kane is, you know, the traditional stop motion puppet is a very fancy armature underneath a foam rubber skin. With this one, they said, hey, why don't we sort of play to the fact that we have this really intricate mechanical armature and build it into the design of the character? So a lot of what you're seeing, like on the arms and the legs and such, the joints, they're dressed, they have little bits of models on them, but they're also just the raw machined aluminum parts, the armature itself. And so it's a real hybrid of, as you're saying, aesthetic and practicality. the armature that did what they needed to do.
And it's a testament to also the materials used that they could actually disassemble this if they wanted to its individual components and reassemble. And it's a prop that holds up over time because it is machined metal.
That's right. Yeah, and I think they did a few Kanes for the movie. Maybe there were 5 or 6. I know he gets battle damaged at some point in the film, and so there are some versions with different distressing on them. But this is an incredibly intricate thing. I mean, I don't know what the part count is, but I think it's in the hundreds. You know, a huge amount of pieces that go into creating that.
Yeah, and scaled. Like they have the full-size version. This is a scaled version, so all the hardware has to match not only the scale for this, but also work as hinges, as joints.
Yes, no, that's right. And I thought Kane was a great follow-up to the original ED-209 from the first film.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course Jurassic Park.
Yes.
The kind of the end of the stop motion era. Now, people may know that there was some stop motion used in terms of the test footage.
Yes.
And you can see that on YouTube, but that is what was used in the test of the Jeep attack scene.
The pre-viz, that's right. And I think at one point when they were developing this puppet and this armature, the thought process at that time was actually that it was going to be a stop motion or a go motion dinosaur in the final shot. So this, Phil told me, is an incredibly intricate, complex armature, one of the best armatures that had ever been designed and built, I think by Tom Sanamon, because they wanted the stop motion or the go motion to be so good in Jurassic Park. And then partway through production, they realized that they could pivot to digital dinosaurs. And that's really where this piece comes in. This is the dino input device. And this is something that Phil has a lot of reverence for because he says it represents such a moment in time in the history of visual effects, from the transition to practical work to digital work. And you know, this is another real armature. It's all machined aluminum. Everything works and moves. And what this has is various digital encoders that are built into every little joint that track the motions and send them out to a computer. And then they can take those motions and apply them to their digital model of the dinosaur. So a lot of how those dinosaurs actually moved in Jurassic Park, even though they were digital models, it started as physical movements with this device that could then be transferred to the digital space.
That's incredible. And like you said, a moment in time. That's what these all represent. That slice of the 70s and 80s and 90s where technology and design were coming together in a way to really create some memorable characters.
Yeah, it's a real walk through visual effects history. And of course, it also happens to be some real fan favorite genre titles. You know, those two tend to go hand in hand. The landmark visual effects films are also the ones that really resonate with the fans of genre film like you and I. So,
oh my gosh,
yeah,
it all holds up so well, and it's so great to see them all together. One of the last times they'll be together before they go into collectors' hands. It's so amazing. This is just a selection of almost 1,000 items you guys have?
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's a huge variety in this time. There's hundreds of titles represented. You know, all the big fan favorites: Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, Starship Troopers. I mean, the stuff that people sort of know Prop Store for and hopefully love Prop Store for, that's what we brought out this time. We think we've got a great spread, and we're looking forward to the auction.
And that spread is what we'll be diving into over the next week leading up to the auction. And so stay tuned for more videos from here at Prop Store. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
We'll see folks next time.
Yep.
Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like to support us further, you could do it by purchasing a poster from us in the merch store. There's some brand new ones. This one is my sketch of the NASA ACES suit. I decided to replicate the classic orange NASA shuttle pumpkin suit a few years ago for New York Comic-Con. And in doing so, I did tons and tons of sketches, but this was kind of my main library sketch. It's the taxonomy of all the major details. Each piece of this I then did further sketches and drawings of, but this was sort of my main map. It's printed on beautiful heavy cardstock. You can use it to maybe make your own suit or just frame it and put it on your wall. You can buy one by following the links below.